The sun was a sick orange color behind the clouds of dust. It had been that way for as long as Kang Tae-ho could remember. The world was dead. The land was gray. And he was dying. 3 days. He had been walking for 3 days without water. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His tongue felt like dry leather in his mouth. Every step sent pain through his legs. But he kept moving. He had to keep moving. If he stopped, he would die. The gray dunes stretched out in every direction. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived here. The radiation from the old wars had killed everything. Even the scavengers, the tough survivors who picked through the ruins of the old world, stayed away from this place. They said the gray dunes were cursed. They said anyone who entered would never come out. Tae-ho had not planned to come here. He had been with his sister, Yuna, when the marauders attacked their camp. There had been too many of them. Men with guns and masks, riding on machines that roared like angry beasts. Tae-ho had fought. He had killed 2 of them with his knife, but then something had hit him in the head, and when he woke up, he was alone. Yuna was gone. The marauders had taken her. He had tried to follow their tracks, but a sandstorm had come and erased everything. He had wandered in the wrong direction for a full day before he realized his mistake. By then, he was deep in the gray dunes, with no water and no hope. Now, on the 3rd day, his body was failing. His vision was blurry. His heart beat too fast, then too slow. He fell to his knees in the gray sand and looked up at the ugly orange sun. "Yuna," he whispered. His voice was just a dry croak. He was going to die here. He was going to die, and his sister would be alone. The marauders would sell her, or worse, and there was nothing he could do. Tae-ho fell forward. His face hit the sand. It was hot and smelled like metal. He closed his eyes and waited for death to take him. But death did not come. Instead, his hand touched something cold. The feeling was so strange that it cut through the fog in his mind. Everything in the gray dunes was hot. The sand was hot. The rocks were hot. The air was hot. But this thing under his fingers was cold, smooth, and hard. Tae-ho opened his eyes. He turned his head slowly and looked at what he was touching. It was a horn. A drinking horn, curved and black, half buried in the sand. It was made of some material he had never seen before. Not metal. Not bone. Not plastic. Something else. Something that seemed to eat the light around it. There were symbols carved into its surface. They glowed with a faint blue light, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Tae-ho should have been afraid. He should have pulled his hand away. Anything glowing in the wastelands was usually dangerous. Radiation, poison, traps left by the old world. But he was too thirsty to be afraid. He was too close to death to care. He grabbed the horn and pulled it from the sand. It was heavier than he expected, and it was full. He could feel liquid inside. He could hear it sloshing gently as he moved the horn. Water. It had to be water. Or something he could drink. Something that would save his life. A small voice in the back of his mind told him this was wrong. Horns did not stay full in the desert. Horns did not glow with strange light. This was not natural. This was not safe. But Tae-ho was dying. And dying men do not listen to small voices. He raised the horn to his cracked lips. He tilted it back, and he drank. The liquid was cold and sweet. It was the most wonderful thing he had ever tasted. It flowed down his throat like a river of life. He drank and drank and drank until the horn was empty. When the last drop touched his tongue, the world changed. Pain exploded through his body. It started in his stomach and spread outward like fire. His muscles twisted. His bones ached. His skin felt like it was being torn apart from the inside. He screamed, but no sound came out. He fell onto his back and stared up at the orange sky as his body burned. And then he heard the voice. It was not a sound. It was not words spoken out loud. It was something that appeared directly in his mind, clear and sharp and filled with rage. Fool, you have taken my 50 years of life. You are now bound to me until the debt is paid. Taeho tried to speak, but his throat would not work. The pain was getting worse. He felt like he was being torn apart and put back together at the same time. Who are you? He thought desperately. What is happening to me? The voice was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, it was cold and bitter. I am Veth. I am one of the Eternal Ones. And you, pathetic creature, have just made the worst mistake of your short, meaningless life. The pain reached its peak. Taeho's back arched off the ground. His eyes rolled back in his head. Silver light poured from his mouth, his nose, his eyes. For a moment, he was not human. For a moment, he was something else entirely. Then the light faded. The pain stopped, and Taeho lay still in the gray sand, breathing hard. He was alive. More than alive. He felt strong. His thirst was gone. His cracked lips had healed. The cuts and bruises from the marauder attack had disappeared. He sat up slowly and looked at his hands. They were clean. They were whole. They looked better than they had in years. What did you do to me? He asked out loud. The voice, Veth, answered with disgust. I did nothing. You did this. You drank from my vessel. You absorbed my life essence. 50 years of power that I stored for emergencies. And now it is inside you, bonded to your pathetic human body. Taeho stood up. His legs were strong. His mind was clear. He felt like he could run 100 miles without stopping. I do not understand, he said. Of course you do not understand, Veth hissed. You are human. Your species is barely more intelligent than the animals you evolved from. You find a glowing artifact in the desert and you drink from it without thinking. Taeho looked around the gray dunes. The world looked different now. Sharper, clearer. He could see details he had never noticed before. He could hear the wind moving through the sand. He could smell something on the air. Something that was not dust or metal. I was dying, he said simply. I did what I had to do to survive. Veth was silent for a long moment. Then, finally, he spoke again. Survival. Yes. I suppose that is something I can understand. The voice paused. But understand this. Human. You have taken something from me. Something precious. And now we are bound together until you die. I am trapped inside your mind, inside your body. I cannot leave. I cannot escape. Your life is now my prison. Taeho picked up the empty horn and looked at it. The symbols had stopped glowing. It looked like just an ordinary black horn now. Then we will be prisoners together, he said. Because I am not going to die anytime soon. I have something I need to do first. End quote. I have something I need to do first. And what is that? Veth asked. Taeho turned and looked toward the edge of the gray dunes. Somewhere beyond the dead lands, the marauders had his sister. They thought they had gotten away. They thought no one would follow. They were wrong. I am going to find the people who took my sister, Taeho said. And I am going to kill every single one of them. He started walking. His stride was long and strong. The orange sun beat down on him, but he did not feel the heat anymore. Behind him, in the darkness of his mind, Veth watched and listened. The Eternal One had lived for 10,000 years. He had seen countless species, countless worlds, countless warriors, but something about this human, this desperate scavenger from a dead world, made him curious. You may die trying, Veth said. Taeho smiled for the first time in 3 days. Maybe, he said, but they will die first. And he walked on, out of the wasteland, toward whatever waited ahead. The nights in the wasteland were cold. Taeho sat by a small fire made from dried roots and broken plastic. Above him, the stars were bright and clear. He had never paid much attention to them before. Stars did not feed you. Stars did not keep you safe. But now, with an alien voice in his head, he looked at them differently. "Which one is yours?" he asked. Veth did not answer at first. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than before. Less angry. More tired. "You cannot see it from here. It is very far away. Farther than your human mind can understand." Teho poked the fire with a stick. Sparks flew up into the dark sky. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "If we are going to be stuck together, I should know who you are." "Why would I tell you anything?" Veth replied. "You are my prison. You are my curse. I have no desire to share my history with you." Teho shrugged. "Fine. Then be silent. I do not care." He lay down on the hard ground and closed his eyes. But sleep would not come. The power inside him was restless. It moved through his blood, like a living thing. He could feel it in his muscles, in his bones, in his heart. "I am one of the Eternal Ones," Veth said suddenly. "We are the oldest species in the galaxy. We discovered the secret of immortality before your ancestors learned to make fire." Teho opened his eyes but did not move. He stared up at the stars and listened. "We do not die from age," Veth continued. "We do not get sick. We cannot be killed by normal weapons. Our bodies heal from any wound. Our minds are perfect. We are gods, compared to creatures like you." "If you are gods," Teho said, "then how did you end up in a horn in the desert?" Veth was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, there was something like shame in his voice. "It happened a long time ago. Thousands of years, by your counting. I was a warlord. I commanded fleets of ships. I conquered worlds. I was feared across the galaxy." Teho sat up slowly. "This was interesting. I came to your world by accident," Veth said. "My ship was damaged in a battle. I crashed on this planet, which you call Earth. At that time, your species was primitive. You lived in mud houses. You fought with sticks and stones. You were nothing. And yet here you are," Teho said. "Trapped inside one of us." Veth made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. "Yes, here I am, the greatest warlord of the Eternal Ones, bound to a scavenger who drinks from strange containers in the desert." Teho smiled slightly. "You still have not explained the horn." "The Eternal Ones can store pieces of our life essence in special vessels," Veth explained. "It is a way of saving power for emergencies. If our physical body is destroyed, we can reform using the stored essence. I placed 50 years of my power in that horn before I went into battle. I plan to retrieve it later. 2. They want to. 2. But you crashed on Earth instead." "Yes, my body was destroyed in the crash. It took me centuries to reform. By the time I recovered, the horn was lost. I searched for it, but the landscape had changed. Your species had grown. Wars had been fought. Cities had risen and fallen. The horn was buried somewhere, and I could not find it." Teho thought about this. "So you left?" "I had to. Other matters required my attention. I told myself I would return someday. But time passes differently for the Eternal Ones. 1,000 years is nothing to us. I forgot about your little world. 1, 1, 1. And the horn stayed buried," Teho said, "until I found it. Until you found it and drank from it like an idiot animal drinking from a puddle." Teho did not take offense. He had been called worse things in his life. "So now your 50 years of power are inside me." Veth took a moment to answer. "Your body has been enhanced. You are stronger, faster, and harder to kill than any normal human. Your senses are sharper. Your mind is clearer. You can heal from wounds that would kill others." Teho flexed his hands. He could feel the power in them. It was strange and wonderful. "But there is a cost," Veth continued. "The power is not unlimited. Every time you use it, you burn through some of the 50 years. If you push yourself too hard, if you heal too many wounds, or fight too many battles, you will use up the power faster. And when it is gone, you will die. Taeho considered this. How long do I have? If you live carefully, perhaps 50 years. If you fight and struggle and push yourself, much less. Every time you use the power, you are spending your own life. I see. Taeho stood up and looked toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, his sister was waiting for him. Then, I will have to be smart about how I use it. You? Smart? Veth laughed bitterly. You drank from a glowing alien artifact without thinking. I do not have much hope for your intelligence. Taeho ignored the insult. He had more important things to think about. Over the next few days, he walked east, toward the settled lands where the survivors had built their camps. As he traveled, Veth taught him about the power inside him. He learned how to move faster than the eye could follow. He learned how to hit harder than any normal man. He learned how to listen to sounds from far away and see details in the darkness. Every new ability was amazing. Every new ability cost him days or weeks of his remaining time. You are learning quickly, Veth admitted one night. Faster than I expected. I have to, Taeho replied. My sister does not have time for me to learn slowly. Veth was silent. Then he asked, This sister? She is important to you? She is everything to me. Taeho's voice was hard. When the world ended, when our parents died, when everyone we knew was killed or scattered, she was the only thing that kept me going. And I was the only thing that kept her safe. Until the marauders came. Family, Veth said thoughtfully. The Eternal Ones do not have families. We do not reproduce. We do not form bonds. We exist alone, forever. That sounds lonely. It is efficient, Veth corrected. Bonds make you weak. Caring for others makes you vulnerable. If you had no sister, you would not be risking your life on this foolish rescue mission. Taeho shook his head. If I had no sister, I would have died in the gray dunes. She is the reason I kept walking. She is the reason I found your horn. Without her, I am nothing. Veth did not respond. But something in his silence suggested he was thinking about Taeho's words. A week after leaving the gray dunes, Taeho reached the edge of the settled lands. He found a small camp of survivors and traded work for information. The marauders, he learned, operated from a ruined city to the south. They captured people and sold them to someone. No one knew who. No one wanted to know. Do not go there, an old woman told him. The marauders are bad, but their masters are worse. Creatures that are not human. Monsters from the sky. Taeho felt something cold settle in his stomach. Monsters from the sky? He repeated. You heard me. Bugs. Giant bugs with claws and teeth. They come in ships that make no sound. They take people, and they never come back. Taeho thanked the old woman and walked away. In his mind, Veth was cursing in a language that had no translation. The Corveth, Veth hissed. Of course. It had to be the Corveth. Veth hissed. Veth hissed. You know them? Every species in the galaxy knows the Corveth hive. They are parasites. They breed by using other species as hosts. They spread across the stars like a disease. I thought they had not found your world yet. It seems they have. Yes. Veth's voice was grim. And if your sister has been taken by them, then you are not going on a rescue mission. You are going to your death. Taeho continued walking south. His stride was steady. His face was calm. Maybe, he said, but I am going anyway. Veth wanted to argue. He wanted to tell this foolish human that fighting the Corveth was suicide, that the hive had consumed entire civilizations, that one man, even one with 50 years of eternal power, could not hope to stand against them. But he said nothing. Because deep down, in a place he did not want to admit existed, he wanted to see what would happen. He wanted to see what this strange, stubborn human would do. And so they traveled south together. the scavenger and the warlord, toward a city of ruins and a nest of monsters. The ruined city rose from the wasteland like the skeleton of a giant. Broken towers reached toward the sky. Collapsed buildings created mountains of concrete and steel. Once, millions of people had lived here. Now, only ghosts and monsters remained. Taeho crouched on a hill overlooking the city. It was night, but his enhanced eyes could see clearly in the darkness. He watched the movement below and felt sick. The marauders were there, just as the old woman had said. They lived in a camp made of scrap metal and old vehicles, but they were not alone. Mixed among them were creatures that made Taeho's blood run cold. The Corveth were insects, but not like any insect from Earth. They stood on two legs like humans, but they were taller and thinner. Their bodies were covered in hard black shells. Their heads had no eyes that Taeho could see, only clusters of sensors that twitched and turned. Their arms ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. "How many?" Taeho asked in his mind. "I count 20 Corveth soldiers," Veth replied. "Plus maybe 40 human marauders. And look there, near the largest building. That is a transport ship. They are preparing to move their captives." Taeho looked where Veth directed. He saw a ship unlike anything from Earth. It was smooth and black, shaped like a teardrop. Near its open doors, he could see cages, and in the cages, he could see people. His heart jumped when he spotted a small figure with long dark hair. Even from this distance, he recognized her. "Yuna," he breathed. "You see her?" "Yes, she is alive." Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by fear. "They are going to take her. I have to move now." "Wait," Veth commanded. "Think before you act. 60 enemies. One of you. Those are not good numbers. I do not care about numbers. You should. You have power, but you are not invincible. The Corveth are fast and deadly. Their claws can cut through your enhanced skin if they hit you right, and their soldiers can call for reinforcement. If an alarm goes out, more will come. Also see. Also see. Also see. Also see." Taeho forced himself to be calm. "Then what do you suggest?" For the first time, Veth sounded like the warlord he claimed to be. "You need to be smart. Hit them fast and hard. Kill the Corveth first because they are the real threat. The humans will scatter when they see their masters die. And most importantly, do not let them send a signal to the main hive." "How do I stop the signal?" "You see that tower in the center of the camp? It is a communication relay. Destroy it before you do anything else." Taeho studied the tower. It was made of alien metal, surrounded by guards. Getting to it would not be easy. "I understand," he said. "I go for the tower first. Then I kill the Corveth. Then I free the prisoners, and try not to die." Veth added dryly, "Your death would be very inconvenient for me." Taeho almost smiled. Then he moved. He had never run so fast in his life. The world blurred around him as he shot down the hill like an arrow. The power inside him burned bright. He could feel days of his life evaporating with every step. He did not care. The first guard did not even see him coming. Taeho's knife opened his throat before the man could shout. The second guard turned, eyes wide with shock. He died with the same knife buried in his chest. Taeho reached the tower in seconds. He did not know how to destroy alien technology, so he did the only thing he could think of. He punched it. The power flowed through his arm. His fist hit the metal with a sound like thunder. The tower cracked. He punched again, and again. Each blow cost him more life, but the tower was breaking apart. On the fourth punch, it collapsed in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Alarms began to wail. The camp came alive with shouting voices and running feet. "Good. Let them come." The first Corveth soldier found him near the fallen tower. It moved faster than any human, its claws slashing at his face. Taeho ducked and drove his knife into the joint between its head and body. The creature screeched and fell, black blood pouring from the wound. More were coming. Tae-ho could hear them, could feel their vibrations through the ground. He counted 3. No. 4. Approaching from different directions. "Behind you!" Veth shouted. Tae-ho spun and caught a claw on his forearm. Pain flared as the edge cut through his skin. He ignored it and grabbed the Corveth's arm, pulling the creature toward him. His knife found its throat. Another screech. Another body falling. The wound on his arm was already healing, the flesh knitting back together. He could feel the power working, burning through his remaining years to repair the damage. 2 more Corveth attacked together. Tae-ho jumped over one and kicked it in the back, sending it crashing into its partner. Before they could recover, he was on them, his knife moving in quick, precise strikes. He aimed for the joints, the weak points in their armor. They died screaming. The marauders were shooting at him now. Bullets cracked through the air around him. One hit his shoulder, and he felt the impact. Felt the bullet lodge in his muscle. Pain, sharp and hot, but he kept moving. He was a blur of motion, faster than their eyes could follow. He killed 3 marauders before they understood what was happening. The rest began to run. They threw down their weapons and fled into the ruins. They had signed up to capture helpless survivors, not to fight a demon. "The cages," Veth reminded him. "Free the prisoners before more Corveth arrive." Tae-ho ran toward the transport ship. More Corveth emerged from its doors, 7 of them, their claws raised and ready. They formed a line between him and the cages. For a moment, everyone was still. Then the largest Corveth made a sound, a series of clicks and hisses that Tae-ho somehow understood. The power inside him translated the alien speech. "Human, you are fast, you are strong, but you are one, and we are many. Surrender, and we will give you a quick death." Tae-ho looked at the creature. He looked at the cages behind it. He saw Yuna pressing against the bars, her eyes wide with hope and fear. "I have a better idea," he said. "Get out of my way, or I will kill every single one of you." The Corveth made a sound that might have been laughter. Tae-ho felt the power rising inside him. It was more than he had ever used before. It would cost him. It might cost him years. He did not care. "No," he said quietly. "You do not know what you face." He attacked. The battle was brutal. The Corveth were skilled warriors, trained for thousands of years. They worked together, covering each other, trying to surround him. Their claws cut him again and again. Blood ran down his arms, his chest, his face, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Every time they cut him, he healed. Every time they knocked him down, he got back up. He killed them 1 by 1, 2 by 2, until only he was standing. The last Corveth fell at his feet. Tae-ho stood over its body, breathing hard. His clothes were torn and soaked with blood, both his own and theirs. His knife was slick and red. His body was already healing, the wounds closing, the pain fading. But he could feel the cost. Deep inside, something had changed. The power was less than before, much less. "How much?" he asked Veth. "You burned through almost 10 years in that fight," Veth said quietly. "You have maybe 40 left. 40 years." He had traded 10 years of his life for his sister's freedom. It was a bargain he would make again, without hesitation. He walked to the cages and began breaking the locks. The prisoners stared at him with shock and wonder. Some were crying. Some were praying. One man dropped to his knees and called Tae-ho a god. "I am not a god," Tae-ho said. "I am just a man looking for his sister." He reached Yuna's cage and tore the lock apart with his bare hands. She rushed out and threw herself into his arms. "Tae-ho," she sobbed. He held her tight and closed his eyes. For a moment, the ruined city disappeared. The blood and the bodies disappeared. There was only this, his sister in his arms. alive and safe. "I will always come for you," he whispered. "Always." Behind them, the alien transport ship began to power up. Without Corveth pilots, its systems were trying to return home automatically. The engine hummed, then roared. The ship lifted off the ground and shot into the sky, leaving behind only dust and silence. Tae-ho watched it go. He knew what it meant. The ship would return to the main hive. The Corveth would learn what had happened here. They would come looking for revenge. He had won this battle. But the war was just beginning. "What now?" Yuna asked, looking up at him. Tae-ho looked at the freed prisoners, the destroyed camp, the bodies of enemies scattered across the ground. He thought about the Corveth hive, somewhere out among the stars, preparing their next move. "Now," he said, "we prepare. They will come back. And when they do, we will be ready." In his mind, Veth was silent. But the silence was different now. It was not the silence of contempt or anger. It was the silence of respect. This human had done the impossible. He had attacked a Corveth outpost alone and won. He had burned through years of his life without complaint. He had refused to give up, refused to die, refused to accept defeat. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Veth began to wonder if he had underestimated humanity. 6 months had passed since the night Tae-ho destroyed the Corveth outpost. In that time, everything had changed. The freed prisoners had spread the story of what he had done. A man who moved like lightning, a man who killed monsters with his bare hands, a man who could not be stopped. The story grew with each telling, until Tae-ho became a legend across the scattered survivor camps. People came to find him. Warriors who wanted to fight. Families who needed protection. Leaders who sought his guidance. They gathered around him like moths around a flame, drawn by the hope that he represented. Tae-ho did not want to be a leader. He only wanted to protect his sister and prepare for the Corveth return. But Yuna convinced him that they could not do this alone. "You gave them hope," she told him one night. "Hope is a weapon too. Use it." So he did. With Veth's knowledge of alien technology and tactics, Tae-ho trained the survivors. He showed them how to fight. He taught them how to build weapons from scavenged parts. He helped them set traps and prepare defenses. Slowly, a resistance was born. But even as they prepared for the Corveth, another threat came from the stars. The ship appeared on a cold morning, descending through the clouds like a falling star. It was beautiful in a terrible way, made of silver metal that seemed to glow with inner light. It landed outside the main survivor camp without a sound. A single figure emerged. She looked almost human. A woman with pale skin, silver hair, and eyes that held the depth of centuries. She wore robes of a material that shifted and changed color as she moved. She walked toward the camp with the confidence of someone who had never known fear. The survivors aimed their weapons at her. She did not even glance at them. "I am looking for the one called Tae-ho," she said. Her voice was calm and cold. Tae-ho was already walking toward her. He had felt her arrival the moment her ship entered the atmosphere. The power inside him had stirred and recognized something familiar. "I am Tae-ho," he said, stopping a few meters away. "Who are you?" Frund. The woman studied him with those ancient eyes. "I am Sira of the Eternal Ones. I have come for Veth." In Tae-ho's mind, Veth reacted with shock and something that might have been fear. "Sira," he breathed. "I did not think the council would send her." "You know this woman?" Tae-ho asked silently. "She is one of the oldest among us. Older than me. She was ancient when I was young. And she is completely without mercy." Sira tilted her head slightly, as if she could hear their conversation. Perhaps she could. "Veth," she said. "I know you are in there. The council has decided your fate. You will be extracted from this human vessel and returned to us." Tae-ho felt Veth's presence shrink back. "Extracted? What does that mean?" "It means they will rip my essence from your body," Veth explained. "The process is possible, but it requires your death." Your body cannot survive the separation. Taeho looked at Sira. And if I refuse? Sira's expression did not change. You cannot refuse. You are human. You have no choice in matters of the Eternal Ones. Taeho felt anger rising in his chest. Behind him, Yuna and the other survivors were watching. They could not hear the conversation in his head, but they could see the tension between him and this strange visitor. I have a choice, Taeho said. I choose to keep living. That is not possible. Sira raised her hand, and Taeho felt pressure building around him. The air grew thick and heavy. His lungs struggled to take in breath. You have stolen 50 years of life from one of us. That debt must be paid. Taeho fought against the pressure. His power flared, pushing back against hers. For a moment, they were locked in a battle of wills. Two forces straining against each other. Then, Sira lowered her hand. The pressure disappeared. Interesting, she said. You are stronger than I expected. Perhaps Veth's essence has changed you more than I realized. I am not just a vessel, Taeho said. I am a man, and I will not die so that you can have your friend back. Veth is not my friend. He is a war criminal who abandoned his duties and lost valuable resources. The council wants him returned for punishment, not for rescue. In Taeho's mind, Veth laughed bitterly. War criminal. Yes, that is what they called me. I fought too hard. I conquered too many worlds. I made the others jealous, so they stripped my rank and cast me out. Sira looked at Taeho with something like curiosity. You would die for him? For an alien who cares nothing for your species? No, Taeho said. I would live for myself, and for my people. Veth is part of me now, whether I like it or not. And I am not ready to die. Sira was silent for a long moment. Around them, the survivors watched with weapons ready, though they knew their guns would be useless against this being from the stars. Finally, Sira spoke again. I will offer you a deal, human. Undergo the extraction willingly, and in return, I will grant your planet protection from the Corvith Hive. They fear the Eternal Ones. A single word from me would make them leave your world forever. The offer hung in the air like a held breath. Protection from the Corveth. Safety for Yuna and all the survivors. All it would cost was his life. Take it, Veth urged. You are mortal anyway. You would die within decades. This way, your people survive. Taeho looked at his sister. She was staring at him with tears in her eyes. She did not know what was being discussed, but she could see the weight of the decision on his face. He thought about the last 6 months, the people he had trained, the defenses they had built, the hope they had found. He thought about all the humans who had survived the end of their world, who had refused to give up, who kept fighting, even when there was no reason to hope. And he thought about what it meant to be human. No, he said. Sira's eyes widened slightly. Even Veth was silent with surprise. You refuse? Sira asked. You would condemn your species to face the Corveth alone? I would not condemn them to live as cowards, Taeho replied. Humans do not trade lives for safety. We fight for both. If we cannot win our own freedom, then we do not deserve to be free. Sira stared at him for a long moment. Her ancient eyes seemed to be searching for something in his face. You are strange, she said finally. I have watched countless species rise and fall. Most of them begged for protection. Most of them offered anything to survive. But you, a mortal creature with barely a century of life, you refuse the chance to save your kind. I do not refuse to save them, Taeho said. I refuse to buy their safety with my death. There must be another way. 2. There is no other way. Then I will make one. Taeho met her gaze without fear. I challenge you, not to a fight, but to a test. Stay and watch what humanity can do. See how we face the Corveth. If you are not impressed, I will submit to extraction. But if you see something worthy, If you see that we deserve to stand among the stars on our own terms, then you will leave us alone. 1. Sira laughed. It was a cold sound, like ice cracking. A test? You want to test yourself against the Corveth Hive? Yes, they will send a fleet. They are angry about the outpost you destroyed. They want revenge. I know. You will die. All of you will die. Teho smiled. It was the same smile he had worn in the gray dunes. The smile of a man who had nothing to lose. Maybe, he said. But we will not die quietly. And you will see what humans are made of. Sira looked at him for a long time. Then she looked past him at the survivor camp. At the people who were watching with fear and hope in their eyes. Very well, she said finally. I will stay and watch. When the Corveth come, I will observe. But I warn you, human. I have observed the deaths of civilizations before. It does not bother me. Then watch closely, Teho said. Because you are about to see something new. Sira turned and walked back toward her ship. At the entrance, she paused and looked back. You are either very brave or very foolish, she said. Teho shrugged. Humans are usually both. The silver ship rose into the sky and disappeared. But Teho knew Sira was still there, somewhere above, watching and waiting. Yuna ran to his side. What happened? What did she want? Teho put his arm around his sister and looked up at the sky. Somewhere, out there, the Corveth were coming. And somewhere closer, an ancient being was waiting to see if humanity was worth saving. She wanted to make a deal, he said. I made a different one. What kind of deal? Teho looked at the survivors who were gathering around him. Men and women and children, all of them looking to him for answers. For hope. For a reason to believe they could survive. The kind where we have to prove that we deserve to exist, he said. The kind where we fight for our right to live. In his mind, Veth spoke quietly. You know we could have had peace. You could have sacrificed yourself and saved everyone. That is not peace, Teho replied. That is surrender. And humans do not surrender. Veth was silent for a moment. Then he said something Teho had never expected to hear. Perhaps I was wrong about your species. Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought. Teho smiled and turned to address his people. The enemy is coming, he said. They are stronger than us. They have better weapons. They have more soldiers. They think we are nothing but prey. The crowd murmured with fear. But they are wrong. Teho continued. We are not prey. We are survivors. We have endured the end of our world. We have crawled through the ashes and refused to die. And we will not die now. He raised his fist to the sky. When they come, we will fight. When they attack, we will strike back. And when the dust settles, we will still be standing. The crowd began to cheer. It started small, just a few voices, then grew louder and louder, until it echoed across the wasteland. And somewhere above, hidden among the stars, Sira watched and wondered if this small, fragile species might actually surprise her. The Corveth fleet came on the first day of winter. There were 12 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They filled the sky like a storm of black metal, blocking out the sun and casting the world into shadow. The sound of their engines was like thunder that never stopped. Teho stood on a hill overlooking the wasteland. Behind him, the survivors waited in hidden positions, armed with scavenged weapons and homemade explosives. They had prepared for months. They had trained day and night. And now, the moment of truth had arrived. 12 ships, Veth said quietly in his mind. Approximately 5,000 Corveth soldiers, plus ground vehicles, air support, and heavy weapons. Veth 7. Veth 7. Veth 7. How many humans do we have? Teho asked. 300 fighters. Another 200 who can provide support. The numbers were not good. 1 human for every 10 Corveth. And the Corveth were faster, stronger, and better equipped. But numbers were not everything. Tae-ho had learned that lesson in the Grey Dunes. He had been dying, alone, with nothing but his will to survive. And he had survived. He had found power. He had found purpose. And now he would show the galaxy what humans were made of. The Corvette ships began to land. They chose an open area about 2 kilometers from the human positions. Doors opened, and soldiers poured out. Thousands of black-shelled warriors forming into ranks. A voice boomed across the wasteland, amplified by alien technology. Humans, you have defied the Corvette Hive. You have killed our soldiers. You have destroyed our property. For this, you will be exterminated. There will be no mercy. There will be no survivors. Tae-ho picked up a radio that one of his people had salvaged from the ruins. Corvette, he said, and his voice echoed back through the enemy's own amplifiers. You came to our world uninvited. You took our people as slaves. You treated us like animals. And now you are surprised that we fight back? There was silence from the Corvette lines. You think we are weak because we are small. You think we are prey because we are mortal. But you are wrong. We have survived the death of our civilization. We have crawled through the ashes of our world and refused to die. And we will not die today. The Corvette commander made a sound that might have been laughter. Bold words from a species about to be exterminated. Attack. The Corvette army surged forward, and the wasteland exploded. Tae-ho's people had spent months planting explosives across the landing zone. Mines, booby traps, improvised bombs made from old weapons, and alien technology. When the Corvette charged, they ran straight into a field of death. Explosions ripped through the enemy ranks. Hundreds of Corvette fell in the first seconds. The survivors stumbled, confused by the unexpected resistance. They had expected easy prey. They had not expected a trap. Human fighters emerged from their hiding places and opened fire. The weapons were crude compared to Corvette technology, but they worked. More aliens fell. The survivors began to return fire, their energy weapons cutting through the air like angry wasps. But the humans were not standing still. They had learned from Tae-ho's tactics. They moved, constantly, hitting and running, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. They struck from the shadows and disappeared. They used the terrain, the ruins, the wreckage of the old world as shields and hiding places. The Corvette were warriors, but humans were survivors. Tae-ho moved through the battle like a ghost. His power burned bright inside him, pushing his body beyond its limits. He was everywhere at once, killing Corvette with his knife, his fists, with weapons he took from fallen enemies. Every soldier he killed was one less threat to his people. Every death was a message. We are not afraid. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, hidden behind the massive Corvette ships. The battle raged without stopping. Humans died, their bodies falling into the dust. But Corvette died too. Many more Corvette. By afternoon, the alien army had lost 1,000 soldiers. The humans had lost 50. The Corvette commander was screaming orders, demanding his troops push forward, overwhelm the humans with numbers. But something was wrong. The Corvette soldiers were hesitating. They had never faced resistance like this before. They had conquered worlds where the inhabitants surrendered or fled. They did not know how to fight enemies who refused to give up. Then the flagship opened fire. The energy beam came from space, a pillar of light that struck the center of the human positions. The explosion was enormous. Buildings that had stood for centuries were vaporized in an instant. The ground shook like an earthquake. Tae-ho felt the blast throw him through the air. He hit the ground hard, his body broken and bleeding. For a moment, he could not move, could not think, could only lie there as pain washed over him in waves. You are dying, Veth said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. The damage is too severe. Your power cannot heal this fast enough. Tae-ho tried to speak. Blood filled his mouth. He could hear screaming, fighting. The sounds of battle continuing around him. How much power do I have left? He managed to ask. Perhaps 10 years. Maybe less. 10 years. He had started with 50. He had burned through 40 years of life, fighting for humanity. And now, with only 10 years remaining, he was dying. He thought about Yuna. He had sent her away before the battle, made her lead the non-fighters to safety. She was alive. Whatever happened next, she would survive. He thought about the survivors. His people. They were still fighting. Even now. Even with the Corvette flagship raining fire from above. They had not given up. They would not give up. And he thought about what it meant to be human. To live for a brief moment in the vastness of time. To love and lose and struggle and fail. To know that death was coming and to face it anyway. I am not ready to die, he said. You have no choice. Veth replied. Your body is failing. Even with my power, even with everything you have, you cannot survive this. Then I will burn through everything, Teho said. Every year, every day, every hour, I will use it all. That will kill you. I am already dying. At least this way, I choose how I die. He forced himself to his feet. His bones were shattered, but they healed. His organs were damaged, but they regenerated. He could feel the power flowing through him, burning through his remaining years like fire through dry wood. 10 years became 5. 5 became 2. 2 became months, then weeks, then days. And Teho rose. He looked up at the Corvette flagship, the massive ship that hung in the sky like a dark god. He looked at the weapon that was charging for another shot, preparing to wipe out the last of the human resistance. Veth, he said. How do I reach that ship? You cannot. It is too high. Even with my power, you cannot fly. Then I will jump. Veth was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, there was something new in his voice, something that sounded almost like awe. If you do this, you will die. There is no coming back. I know. Teho looked at the sky. But if I take that ship down, my people will live. That is enough. He gathered every scrap of power remaining in his body. Every second, every minute, every hour of life he had left. He pulled it all together into a single moment of absolute force. And he jumped. The ground exploded beneath him. He shot into the sky like a missile, faster than any human had ever moved. The air screamed around him. The world became a blur. He rose higher and higher toward the massive shape of the flagship. The Corvette saw him coming. They fired their weapons, but he was too fast. Their shots missed, trailing behind him like angry fireflies. He climbed through the clouds, through the atmosphere, until the ship filled his entire vision. His fist connected with the hull. The power released in a single, devastating explosion. 10,000 years of eternal life force, compressed into one moment, striking the heart of the Corvette flagship. The ship shattered, metal tore apart. Engines exploded. The massive vessel, the pride of the Corvette fleet, broke into 1,000,000 burning pieces that fell toward the earth like rain, and Teho fell with them. He was smiling as he dropped through the clouds. His power was gone. His body was failing for the last time, but he had done it. Below him, the Corvette army was in chaos. Their flagship was destroyed. Their commander was dead. The human fighters were pressing the attack, pushing the aliens back toward their remaining ships. And somewhere above, hidden in orbit, Syrah watched. She watched as the Corvette fled, their remaining ships scrambling to escape the planet. She watched as the humans cheered, their voices rising in triumph. She watched as a small group found Teho's body in the wreckage and carried it back with tears and prayers. Then she did something she had not done in millennia. She changed her mind. A message went out to the Eternal One's Council. A message went out to every species in the galaxy. A message that would change everything. Earth is not to be touched. The humans have proven themselves. They are not prey. They are not slaves. They are warriors, worthy of respect. Any species that attacks them will answer to the Eternal Ones. On Earth, the survivors gathered around Taeho's body. Yuna knelt beside her brother, holding his cold hand, whispering words of love and gratitude. But something strange was happening. Taeho's eyes opened. He gasped, taking a breath that should have been impossible. He sat up slowly, looking around with confusion and wonder. "How?" he asked. "I spent everything. I should be dead." "I spent." In his mind, Veth laughed. It was not a bitter laugh, or a cruel laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had discovered something amazing. "You should be dead." Veth agreed. "You burned through every year of power I gave you. But something kept you alive. Something that has nothing to do with my essence." "What?" "You, Taeho. Your will. Your spirit. Whatever it is that makes humans refuse to die when they should. I have lived for 10,000 years, and I have never seen anything like it." Taeho looked at his hands. He could not feel the power anymore. The 50 years were truly gone. He was just a man now, ordinary and mortal. But he was alive. "Humans do not know when to give up," he said quietly. "It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." Yuna threw her arms around him, crying and laughing at the same time. The other survivors crowded around, cheering and shouting his name. And in the sky above, Sira's ship remained in orbit, watching over Earth like a silent guardian. A year later, Taeho stood before a gathering of species from across the galaxy. He was humanity's first ambassador, chosen to represent his people on the galactic stage. Beside him, invisible to everyone except him, Veth watched with pride. "They want to know what makes humans so dangerous," Taeho said silently to his companion. "What should I tell them? Die. 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 Tell them the truth," Veth replied. "Tell them that humans are not the strongest, or the smartest, or the oldest species in the galaxy. But they are the most stubborn. They are the most unwilling to accept defeat. They fight when they should surrender. They hope when they should despair. They love when they should hate." Taeho smiled and faced the gathered delegates. "You ask what makes humanity worthy of standing among the stars," he said. "The answer is simple. We know we are going to die. Every one of us, from birth, knows that our time is limited, and instead of making us afraid, that knowledge makes us brave. Because we know we have nothing to lose, we are willing to risk everything." The delegates murmured among themselves. "You measure life in centuries," Taeho continued. "You count years like coins to be hoarded. But we measure life in moments, in love, in sacrifice, in the connections we make with each other. A single day of truly living is worth more than 1,000 years of merely existing." He looked up at the stars, the same stars he had gazed at from the gray dunes so long ago. "That is the worth of a human life, not in years, but in meaning. And that is why we will never be conquered. Because you cannot defeat a species that has already accepted death and chosen to live anyway." In the silence that followed, Veth spoke one last time. "I have lived for 10,000 years, he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars born and die. But in 50 years with you, I learned more about what it means to be alive than in all my millennia of existence." Taeho smiled. "Then I guess you got your money's worth." Veth laughed, and somewhere across the galaxy, the Eternal Ones felt something they had not felt in ages. They felt hope, and the universe would never be the same again.